Blessed Wednesday. Yes, I am so excited. Um, let's get through the logistics first. So, if you're new, welcome to the channel. If you are a frequent flyer, you've been rocking and rolling with us for some time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. Just thank you, truly. Thank you for your prayers, your text messages. I tell y'all this every week because I truly am grateful for the encouragement. Um, so listen, today is it Friday yet type Wednesday. Okay. It's been a week, but I thank God because we're making it through. I thank God for his strength. I thank God because he's awesome. Let's just be honest. He is awesome. I am excited still, even though it's a is it Friday yet type Wednesday. A little on the chilly side down here. But I thank God. Thank God. So listen. So if you don't already know, this is what we do. We have our pen and our highlighter. Let me put this back. We have our notebook, sticky notes, and most importantly, we have our word. That's most that's most important. And of course, like I always tell you every Wednesday, get your beverage that's pleasing to the Lord. Okay, if it's not pleasing to the Lord, please don't do it. I know my people. Okay. So, with that being said, let me tell y'all something. God is faithful, and God is taking me on a journey of this season requires a level of faith that I have to grow into. Now I know a lot of times we talk about um like where's your faith at? You gotta have faith in God, and you have to, I know the whole spiel because I know my people. But sometimes we have to understand. My face is like really dry, but I did moisturize it. We have to understand that God has to grow us into levels of faith, which requires we're expecting something from God. It's going to take a new level of faith that we have to grow into. Now, it's easier said than done. Let's be honest. It's not as easy as we read. It's not as easy as people say. And really, you have to go through it to get through it so you can help somebody else through it. Okay? So I just wanted to encourage you, if you are like me and you are in a season right now where the Lord is pushing on you to grow your faith because you're expecting some mighty moves of God in different areas of your life. In different areas of your life, I encourage you to trust in the Lord. I encourage you. One of my spiritual sisters called me Monday and she said to me, have that raw, honest conversation with God about what you feel, what you're going through. And I encourage you to do the same because I did it and it was very refreshing. Um, and often we see, this is just an example. We see David where he has those raw, honest conversations with God about how he feels. So I encourage you to do that. But let's get into it. So listen, I'm a little hyper than usual because like I told you, the Lord has been growing me. Um the Lord had gave me something uh Monday when I was having this raw, honest conversation with him. And it was so encouraging. I ain't gonna lie to you. I had to sit with it for a while because I wasn't quite grasping it. That's just being honest. And that's fine. Because that's what the Lord will do. The Lord will bring it so you can understand it. Yes. So let's get into it now. Y'all know I always read out of the New Living Translation, NLT. But this morning, I want you to get your NLT and your King James, because I'm coming to you with a little King James this morning. For my seasoned people, my vets in the word who had that King James, this one's for you. Okay, so we're going to look at a familiar passage that we've talked about before, that you've probably heard a plethora of times. And we're going to look at Habakkuk 2. Okay, and we're going to look at that. Nope, I ain't talking about no vision board. Okay, that's Duke's hair. I'm not talking about no vision board. Nope, we're not talking about that today. We'll do another lesson if the Lord leads me to on vision boards. But right now, we just gonna look at Habakkuk. We're gonna look at chapter 2, and we're gonna look at verse 2 and 3. But I'm just gonna focus on verse 3, because baby, let me tell you something. When I say the Lord dropped some clarity in my spirit on he dropped it in my spirit Monday. But I had to sit with it because I was like, Lord, listen, I be in the NLT, but the Lord said, I need you to get it. And I'm not saying that the NLT won't allow you to get it, because next week, we're still going to be in NLT. But for this particular passage, the Lord really told me I needed to be anchored in the King James. So if you don't know, let me tell you, Habakkuk, and I encourage you to read it. It's a good read. In chapter 1, he is making complaints to God, and he's really like asking God, like, yo, what's going on? Like, you don't see what's going on down here? Um, in chapter 1, verse, I believe it's in the I'm gonna say the first couple verses, because I don't want y'all to quote me on this. But Habakkuk says to the Lord, like, I've been crying out to you, and you ain't pretty. And I'm paraphrasing. Matter of fact, let me just read it. Habakkuk, it's in verse 2. Habakkuk 1, verse 2, it says, how long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? This is what Habakkuk is saying to the Lord. Like, I'm calling for help. I'm telling you, I need your help. Are you not listening? Yoo-hoo! Are you not listening to me? Do you not hear that I need your help? I'm calling for you. Do you hello? I need your help. That's what Habakkuk is saying. Like, Lord. And listen, this is a prophet. So he is his gift allows him to hear from the Lord, to speak the mind of the Lord. And he says, listen, I'm calling for help, and you're not responding. Do you not hear me? You don't hear me down here calling to you? But listen, the Lord gives him a response, and guess what Habakkuk does? Habakkuk makes another complaint. Well, you know what? I got another complaint on top of that. Thank you for that answer, but now I got another complaint. And that's when we get to chapter 2. In chapter 2, remember, I'm reading out of King James Version first. Okay? The King James Version first. And Habakkuk 2, Habakkuk says, and let's just start at verse 1. I always give you a little context. So Habakkuk makes his second complaint in chapter 1. And chapter 2, Habakkuk says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Verse 2 says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tablets, and he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Okay. And that's how we ended up with the title, And Though It Tarry. Because, and I ain't thinking about this until after I had already set it up to go live. What I should have typed was, and though it tarry, it will not tarry. My God. Listen, when the Lord said to me, and though it tarry, I ain't gonna lie, I thought I had it. Boom, I got it, Lord. I got what you're saying. Until I went to look up the definition for tarry. Because the definition for tarry means to intentionally wait for an expected event. To intentionally wait for an expected event. Okay. Another definition was to stay longer than expected. To stay longer than expected. One of the synonyms for tarry was to linger. And to linger means to spend a long time over something. It is slow to disappear. It remains. Listen, the scripture says, I'm telling y'all, I don't know about y'all, but maybe I'm getting a little too excited. All right. Because this is, when I say it blessed me, because it hit me like yesterday in my study time. Okay, cool. I was reading. Okay, I got it. As I was looking up the definitions, I thought about Hannah, and I thought about Hannah in the sense of um, how she was persistent, how she remained in a place longer than she expected to, but at the same time, in the midst of, like, she was making that request known. Like, she went to God and she stayed with God. So I'm like, okay, tarry. Tarry means something's lingering. Tarry means to intentionally wait for something expected to happen. Okay, cool. Got it. Got you. Another synonym for tarry was delay. Now listen. Now listen. This is why we gotta look these words up. I'm serious. We had to look these words up because the scripture says in the King James Version, it says, for the vision is set for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. We know that God can't lie. That's just plain and simple. Let's just wrap that up. Don't get confused about it because he can't do it. Okay. Then it says, though it tarry, wait for it. So although it's lingering, wait for it. Wait for that expected event. Wait for that expected miracle. Wait for that expected blessing. Wait for that expected deliverance. Wait for it. Okay? It says, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. This is why when we read scriptures, we have to read its entirety. Because when the Lord gave it to me, and though it tarry, boom, I was like, okay, God got it. We done been here before because we done vision boards, we done taught vision board classes. Boom, we got it. I got what you saying. And though it tarry. Yep. Until I started looking up the definitions for tarry, and I was just like, wait a minute, what? You and though it tarry. Okay. And though it tarry, it won't tarry. That's what the word. Now listen, let me tell you why the reading of the King James Version was so important for this particular lesson. Because let's go on over to the NLT. Because in the NLT it says, this vision is for a future time. It describes the end and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. Got it, get it, good, got it. Yep, I got that part. I got that. I understand that. But let me tell you something. The revelation that the King James Version gave to me, baby. Let me tell you something. And though it tarry, it won't tarry. Although we may be in a situation or we got something going on, and it's we here a little bit longer than we anticipated. This season lasting a little bit too long now. Listen, I feel like in Habakkuk chapter 1, Lord, do you not hear me calling for your help? You don't. I know you hear me. I know for sure. I'm I'm sure you hear me. He hears me, you, and everybody else if we all speaking at the same time. Because that's how awesome he is. But the word says, and although it tarry, it won't tarry. Don't even worry about it. So let me tell you something. When I got that revelation, when I was going to bed, I was just like, although it tarry, it won't tarry. It won't be delayed. Yep, we in this season a little bit longer than we anticipated. Yep. Yep, we dealing with situations a little bit longer than we anticipated. It wasn't supposed to be this long now. But we in the season. But the Lord says, and he's talking to Habakkuk, and guess what? I thank God for the Bible because we can read it and personalize it. That although it tarry, it won't tarry, it won't be delayed. But guess what? One thing that I one thing that I understand from Habakkuk is that guess what? Although it's tarry, I still gotta do my job. I still gotta be on my post. Listen, in verse 1, he says it. I stand upon my watch and set upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me. King James, NLT says, I will climb up to my watchtower and stand at my guard post. Even though it's tarrying you there a little longer, you still got to be on guard. You still got to be on guard. You don't get no pass. You think you get a pass because you're going through a rough season? You think you get a pass from your assignment because you're in a season a little longer than you expected? But you asking God for a dumbfounded miracle, and you mad because you in that season a little longer than you anticipated? Okay, come on. We're gonna let's go. Let's go to First Samuel. Let's talk about Hannah a little bit. Now I know we done talked about Hannah before, but guess what? We're gonna talk about Hannah again. Okay? So Hannah, we know she's provoked by Penina. Penina spitting them babies out. Boom, 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 boom. She got them babies coming. Okay? So listen. So it says in verse, what do we want to look at? In verse 10, okay, Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. She was crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. Why? Because in her mind, it was tarrying. It felt she was in this season a little bit longer than she anticipated. But guess what? It didn't tarry because the Lord allows her to have children. So even though you're going through, you got to get through so you can help get somebody else through. Persistence. Listen, it lingered, but she was persistent. She was persistent. Listen, now I want you to go to. Mm, mm, mm. I want you to go to Second Corinthians chapter 12. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Excuse me. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. This is my boy Paul. Me and Paul have a unique relationship. Sometimes I be like, you get on my nerves, But other times, he's my guy. Okay. So Paul says, this boasting, and I'm reading out of NLT. Let's clarify that. I was only doing King James for Habakkuk. Okay. We're in the NLT now. Habakkuk said, Paul says, this boasting will do no good, but I must go on. I will reluctantly tell you about the visions and the revelations from the Lord. I was caught up in the third heaven 14 years ago. Whether I was in my body or out of my body, I don't know. Only God knows. Yes, only God knows whether I was in my body or outside my body. But I do know that I was caught up to paradise and heard things so astounding that they cannot be expressed in words. Things no human is allowed to tell. That experience is worth boasting about, but I am not going to do it. I will only boast about my weakness, that thing that's lingering. I will only boast about my weakness. But if I wanted to boast, I would be no fool in doing so because I would be telling the truth. But I won't do it because I don't want anyone to give me credit beyond what they can see in my life or hear in my message. Even though I have received such wonderful revelations from God, so to keep me from becoming proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. 3 different times. This is where I want to anchor it. 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weakness and in the insults, the hardships, the persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Do you hear what Paul is saying? Paul is saying, listen, I got a thorn in my flesh. I asked the Lord 3 times what Habakkuk said. Habakkuk said, listen, you, do you hear me down here calling for help? Paul says, I asked 3 different times. And every time God said to me, my grace is sufficient. Don't even worry about that. You focus on the wrong thing. And that's the problem with a lot of us. Listen, I know my people. I know you. I know what you're about to think. Let me say that. No, I don't know what you're about to think. I'm making an assumption. And you know what they say about that. But anywho, a lot of times, well, you know what? Let's backtrack because we said we was gonna work on that, didn't we? I can only personalize this for me. Okay, because I know I can only personalize this for me. Sometimes in my mind, in my walk, I focus on the wrong things. How do you focus on the wrong things, Chrissy? Because when I'm going through a season where God is growing me, where God is trying to show me something, like this season we talked about with our faith. We talked about I talked to you about how the Lord is trying to grow my faith to go a little higher. And instead of me focusing on that, it started off with me focusing on what was going on. And what was happening was, with me focusing on what was going on, I was missing what God was doing. And sometimes we can miss what God is doing because we're focused on the weakness, the situation that's lingering. We're focused on the wrong thing. But Paul says, listen, I was focused on this thorn because this thorn was bothering me. And that's honest. Yep. Thorn bothering you. Okay. But at the same time, if as you read, you'll see that Paul then switches from, yep, I had this thorn in my flesh. It was getting on my nerves. It got to the point like I just kept asking God to remove it. God kept giving me the same answer. But then what we see is Paul says, listen, so now I am glad to boast about my weakness. I heard the guest pastor who came to my church on Sunday. He said when we boast about something that and he didn't say boast. He said when we are open and honest in public about an area that we're struggling with, that gives room for God to get the glory, for other people to see. Excuse me. For other people to see. So Paul says, listen, I'm not boasting about all the wonderful things that I have done for the sake of the Lord. I'm boasting about this weakness. Listen, we talked either last week or the week before in Acts 9, where the Lord tells Ananias, like, listen, go to Paul because he will now understand how much he has to suffer for my name. How much he will have to suffer. And here Paul is talking about some of the suffering that he has gone through. Because listen, he says, that's why I take pleasure in my weakness and in the insults and in the hardships and in the persecutions and the troubles that I suffer for Christ. Paul says, listen, yep, I done been through some stuff. But I'm writing this because I had to go through so I can get through. So guess what? He can help us through. So when persecution and troubles come, we're not bothered by that. We're not bothered by that. And listen, don't get me wrong. I know sometimes we can become frustrated because it seems like they're coming back to back. Back to back. Back to back. But listen, although it tarry, it won't tarry. We got to hold on to what God said. We have to hold on to what he told us. And he told us in Habakkuk. Although it tarry, wait for it. Look, hold on, that's the last one. Second Peter. Go to Second Peter. Go to Second Peter. Second Peter. And we're gonna start at verse 8. We're just gonna look at 8 and 9. Okay, Second Peter. Second Peter 3, I'm sorry, Second Peter 3, 8 through 9. I'm not sure who that is, but good morning. Listen, it says, but you must not forget this one thing, dear friends. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. As a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. The Lord isn't really being slow about his promise. The Lord really isn't being slow about his promise. Listen, this blessed me. He's not being slow. As some people think, we think, listen, Habakkuk, you don't hear me talking to you? You don't hear me crying for help? I need you. The Lord is not slow about delivering his promise. But listen, no, he is being patient for our sake. He's being patient for our sake. Patient for our sake. That's how much he loves us. That, you know what? And it's just like children. Or if you don't have children, nieces and nephews or puppies. Dogs, let me tell you something. They want something, but just because you want it doesn't mean you're ready for it. Doesn't mean you can handle it. Doesn't mean mentally you're ready. Doesn't mean physically you're ready. Spiritually, you might not be ready. Financially, you might not be ready. But listen, this is what the word says. He is being patient for your sake. Okay? He does not want anyone to be destroyed. Who wants you to be destroyed? Satan. John 10:10. What does the enemy come to do? Steal, kill, and destroy. But the other side of 10, but the Lord, but Jesus comes to give life and life more abundantly. So the Lord is being patient for our sake so we're not destroyed. Listen, but wants everyone to repent. Wants everyone to repent. That's what the Lord wants because he's patient. I just really want to encourage you this morning that although it tarry, it will not tarry. And let me tell you what I thought about when I first heard the word. I thought about when I was younger. I don't think they do it as much as they used to. I I don't think churches do it as much as they used to. But at my foundational church, they used to have tarry service. They used to have tarry service. Now, for the young people who are watching this, you may not understand what tarry service is, but I encourage you to access seasoned saint, and they will give you a more detailed description. But tarry service is really, as a child, it for me it was something that was definitely lingering because it was long, but it was beneficial because guess what? Although it tarried, it did not tarry. And I say that because in that process of praying, that process of worshiping, in that process of seeking God, I've seen souls saved. I've seen people delivered. I've seen God's work for myself. And when I tell you I've seen God for myself as a child, and I'm telling you to this day, mm, God is awesome. Okay. But I want to encourage you all. Listen, we see in Habakkuk it says, although it tarry, it won't tarry. That's the word. That's the word. We see in Second Peter, listen, the Lord ain't slow about bringing about his promise. He gonna do what he said he gonna do. But the question now is, will you trust him? Will you trust that he's going to deliver? Will you trust that he's gonna come through? I got a better question for you. Will you stop looking at your troubles and your tribulations and persecution? Will you stop looking at all that and look at God? Let me tell you something. When I say these past 2 weeks have been like bittersweet, because it's like I see God, but at the same time, I know what I see in front of me. I know what I'm dealing with. I know what I'm going through. But to make that conscious decision to say, God, this hurts, but I trust you. God, I don't like it, but I trust you. God, I don't understand, but I trust you. God, it's just not, but I trust you. I told God yesterday, I said, you already know I'm mad, so let's get past that. But I trust you. And that was just honest. That's how I felt in the moment. It's amazing. And I think this kind of hit me in the last week. early this week. It's amazing how we could spend so much time on the phone being brutally honest with family, friends, whoever your safe space person is, but we won't do the same with God. And I'm not being smart. Listen, I don't take anything away from your safe person, but your safe person can't fix nothing. I, I, li- I'm just saying, like, let's be serious. It's only so much. Like, listen, with my clients, we do something um, where we work with our clients to identify who their support system is. It's called like a mass assessment. And what you do is you ask a series of questions, get the parent to identify like who supports you with this, who supports you with that. Boom, 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 boom. But then is a second piece on this assessment that asks the main people that you have identified, and what is their limitation? Because there's a limitation. With your safe person, there's a limitation. And I know we listen, I know we don't want to admit it. I think one of the hardest things for me to do or for me to learn is that my parents couldn't do everything. Like they, as much as I love them and they love me, their love was reciprocated. It was only so much that we could do for one another, even as an adult. And I remember one of the biggest things that I battled with when God was telling Jeray and I to move to North Carolina was, who's going? I got to stay here and take care of my mom because it had been her and I for so long. I gotta, I gotta stay here and take care of her. And the Lord said to me, "That's my daughter. I don't need you to take care of her because you ain't been taking care of her. I've been taking care of her." And when the Lord said that to me, I had to understand that even as much as I love my mother and my mother loved me, there was a limitation. And what I'm letting you know is, even with your safe person, there is a limitation. They can only listen but so much. They can only provide so many answers. And at the end of the day, if it's the Lord that's trying to get your attention, they can do nothing. If it's the Lord that's trying to get you to trust him, they can do nothing. In this season, guess what? I'm learning. I'm learning two things. One, that God is trying to get me to trust him. And God is growing Jeray and I in our marriage. And it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. But God is teaching us that guess what? Jeray is usually, now this is just being honest, and people who know me and have heard me talk about my marriage, Jeray is usually the one that fires the question back at me like, where's your faith at? Like, do you not trust God or not? And I'm usually the one that I'm going to get to that faith piece, but I need a minute to like process everything that's going on. Emotionally, I need to get myself together. And Jerry's like, full, like, do you trust God or not? Hello? Like, do you trust him? And what God is teaching me is not that I can't have these feelings or emotions. Morning, Quan. Not that I can't have these feelings or emotions, but I'm spending too much time in them. Like I'm spending too much time focusing on them. Listen, Paul says I asked 3 times. Focus on the wrong thing. Habakkuk is talking about, listen, Lord, I'm crying out to you because there's a whole lot going on down here. I need your help. Focus on the wrong thing. And we sometimes we spend too much time in our emotion of a situation. And that's where the increase of faith comes in. Yep, this is happening, but God, I trust you. And to be consistent with it. To be consistent and understanding that, guess what? We're going to have to suffer for Christ. We're going to have to suffer for Christ so that we can reign with him. See, we quick to talk about we're going to reign with him. Yeah, I'm going to reign with Jesus. Yeah. You got to first suffer. You got to first go through persecution. You got to go through trials and tribulations. You have to go through. I'm sorry. Let me tell you something. I don't know where this misconception of um came into play of under or of thinking that when you give your life to Christ, that all of a sudden all the rain is going to stop, the sun is going to come out, and you're going to be smooth sailing for the rest of your days. No, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, and that's the reality of it. But I will say this to you. Let me encourage you with this: that is worth it. Because when we suffer with Christ, we understand that, guess what? This too shall pass. We understand that although it tarry, it won't tarry. I know what the Lord told me. When the Lord called me to him, I know what he said to me. I know what he said to me during this season. I know what he said to me during that season. Guess what? Yep, some seasons are a little longer than others. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna hold you. Yep, yes, they are. But understand this. The word said it won't tarry. Although it's lingering, this season around a little bit longer than we all anticipated. Prime example, inflation. A little bit longer than we all expected. Okay. Every person I talk to, they talking about the price of food, the price of gas, the price of this, the price of that. All right, this season a little bit longer than we all anticipated. But guess what? God is going to come through because it won't tarry. It won't be delayed. That our cup shall overflow, that we should live where we're able to bless others. Do you hear what I'm telling you? As a believer, that's what the Lord tells us. Our cup shall run over. But the question is, will you trust him? Will you trust him? Yeah. Listen, you ain't got to fake the funk with me. I understand. And some things I'm still learning. I sit with my seasoned saints to really understand how they were so persistent in their walk with Christ. Because listen, times a whole lot easier than they used to be. But they never gave up on God. So I'm encouraging you today that although it tarry, it won't tarry. Yep, it's lingering, sis. It's lingering, bro. But God gonna come through. Paul says, listen, I asked 3 times. And I know the Lord hear me because I'm his prophet. I asked him 3 times to get this thorn out my flesh. But the Lord said, listen, my grace is sufficient. Don't worry about that. Just keep doing what I sent you to do. Don't listen. I know that thorn hurt. I know that thorn bother you when you stand up. I know that thorn bother you when you move a certain way. I know it. But my grace is sufficient. If you focus on me, you ain't even gonna worry about that thorn no more. You ain't gonna be focused on that thorn no more. Because God says, trust in me. Push past the pain for purpose. Will we trust him? Listen, I don't know about you. I really do pray that this encourage you. Because let me tell you something. When the Lord like brought it full circle and I really got a full understanding of it last night, I started to get up and do the video then. But I'm here to encourage you. Although it tarry, it won't tarry. God's coming through. Do you hear God coming through? Why? Because the word says that he can't lie. Even in Habakkuk says, listen, I ain't lie. You just gotta wait. Mm. And some of us are not good at waiting. I'm one of them. I'm one of them. Yep, that's honest. So I encourage you to understand that God hears you, God sees you, and God has not forgotten about you. Okay? So listen, I pray y'all have a blessed Wednesday. I pray that you get this. I really do. I pray you get it and you shift your perspective from focusing on what's going on to what God is doing. Okay? I love you all. I pray you all have a blessed day. I just pray, like, yeah. But peace and blessings to you. I pray you all have a blessed day. I love you. Be encouraged. If this has blessed you, please share it with somebody. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Text me. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know, what you thinking. Look, like, listen, you know what, Chrissy, I don't agree with this, or I agree with this. I'm cool with it. But also, listen, set your notifications. Okay, I told y'all 2024, guess what we doing? You're going to get notified. Okay? I'm telling you, in 2024, I'm not sending. I love y'all. Don't get me wrong. I love y'all. Y'all know I love y'all. 2024, we're not sending them out. You're going to have to get notified. So set your notifications. Remember, I love you, but God loves you best. Peace and blessings.